Hello, everyone. My name is Brooke Harris. I am the CEO and founder of a plant-based milk company called Goodmylk Co. I am also the founder of Rome, where we curate and import Moroccan goods. And I am a brand new podcast host, 7 podcasts in, and I'm just a girl on a journey of some serious transformation and super excited to be here.
Future Optimist.
Well, I'm very glad to have you on the show, Brooke. And I was going to say, I could tell you're a podcast host by the fact that you have the actual setup. 200 interviews down. Very few people have a microphone or headphones. So I could sense, I was like, either you take this very seriously or you're a pro. 7 episodes counts, I think.
Pro, yeah, not quite pro, very much learning, but enjoying it. It's a lot of fun.
Yep, well, I'm 200 episodes in and very little changes, except you eventually grow a mustache. That's the only thing that happens after 175.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so you can wait for that.
I'm
It's a
looking
rite
forward
of
to
passage. Yeah, you should definitely wait. So we've got a lot of interesting things to discuss. We talk about topics that are unusual on the show and also things that are impacting the planet. Some people look at the problems of the world and they throw their hands up and they say it's hopeless. Other people look at the problems of the world and they say, I want to help solve that. I think based on your track record, you say you spent 11 years fighting the good fight. I think you're in the category of the person who's trying to solve some of the problems that you've seen. So let's start with, what did you see and what was the problem that you wanted to solve and why did you want to solve it?
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, Ross. It's a blessing and a curse, right? I'm sure you are familiar with that and have felt the same. Sometimes it's like...
That's the other title of this show. Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, God damn it, why can't I just leave things alone? But here we are. And my first, my journey into starting business was like every good entrepreneur. I was trying to solve a problem and I wanted to help people. And I actually started, my first business was a cold pressed juice company. And I was coming off my own wellness journey of getting really sick, not understanding why. Turns out, I thought I was being healthy, but it was processed food. And along that journey, I found cold pressed juice and fell in love with it and fell in love with how it made me feel. And really the thought process there was simple. It was like, man, one bottle of this, if made right, could really be a catalyst for people on their own health journey. It could be like, and I know that might sound kind of silly, like a bottle of juice isn't necessarily going to heal you or change your life, but if you've ever had like fresh, organic, cold pressed juice that's like done right, it can make you feel so good. And then it could be that little spark of like, hey, if I could feel this from one bottle of juice, like what else could I do to make myself feel good? And that was really the motivation. And started at the local farmers market. Bless LA for having that opportunity. And that is a real opportunity, I would be there.
Nice.
You make thousands of dollars in a day just standing at the farmers market. So got really lucky there and that evolved. And as you probably know, when you're out interacting with people, you start to see more problems and see like, oh, there's more things we need to solve.
That's also what I've noticed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got into plant-based milk and how we evolved into Goodmylk. Better for you, better for the planet, plant-based milk. Because I really saw the problem in that category of this beverage, this food that a lot of people are consuming multiple times a day, first thing in the morning, feeding to their children. And it was really
all day.
Yeah, it's marketed as healthy and good for you, and it's garbage. Like it's evolved a touch, but really still 99% of the products on the market are actually really bad for you, especially with this oat milk craze coming out. And these oat milks are super processed and full of canola oil, and the oats are actually processed in a way that turn it into maltose sugar. And you're just like, people, you are making yourself sick by not understanding what you're putting into your body. And that's really been the mission all along of Goodmylk and any of my businesses, is to empower people through the most important thing they do every day, which is fueling yourself, making decisions around food.
Well, you've chosen a niche within a niche there, which is quite funny because some subset of the population is just trying to convince people to get away from regular cow milk, traditional milk. And you're of the new wave or the even smaller wave that says, even within this subset of the small percentage of alternative milks, there is an issue here. And I think what is sort of ironic or perhaps maybe not so well understood is that you would agree, I think, with a lot of the points that people who consume, let's say, cow milk daily would also say as a criticism of the alternative milks, for example, because they say like, oh, if you eat a Beyond Burger, that's been in the news lately. A Beyond Burger is actually really high in saturated fats and so on. It's full of all of this junk. And so that's under fire for being less healthy than a traditional hamburger. But of course, when you're seeking out these alternative solutions, it's not that where you are today is the end goal necessarily. It's all stepping stones and it's all part of an evolution. So you're saying it's okay to criticize these things. It's good. We still have to think about the ultimate mission, which is health and, of course, better for the planet at the same time.
Yes. And that's the only mission, right? Like we are more aligned with most dairy companies than we are other plant-based milk companies. I wouldn't touch, thank you for knowing and sharing that information about Beyond Meat and the Impossible Burgers and all these like fake meat products. I don't touch those. I wouldn't feed them to anyone I love. I wouldn't recommend them. I
mean, they're very good. They're just not healthy. They're delicious.
Yeah, no, and a lot of them are solving for that delicious thing first, right? But also kind of masquerading under this like gray area of like, well, it's not meat, so it must be healthier for me, or it's not dairy, so it must be healthier for me. And those companies are playing into that for sure. They're riding that wave, and it's just not true.
I would say. So how do you think, because one of the things, I don't remember where I picked it up, from your bio or somewhere on your website, you at one point said that a lot of those things are assumptions based on the need to scale. Like people assume that in order to grow this kind of thing, you need canola oil, you need these stabilizers, you need these chemicals. It's just a cost of doing business. So how do you feel, because you said that you unlocked that scale part of things without doing that. Why do you disagree with that? Or is there some truth to that to get it out, you need to put a bunch of junk in it?
Well, I still, we've had a crazy journey, and I still believe that, as a food maker, I really do feel it's our responsibility to put out foods, especially in a health food category, to put out foods that are healthy and good and have, the consumer and the planet in mind. And so that is, for better or worse, again, that is like always our goal. And because of my story and the reason that I started this business, it's not really something that we falter from or even can. It's not really in our, in our scope of really thinking about. Yeah. And that has certainly made our journey much more difficult because I don't know if you've seen our brand. Like we have a good name, Goodmylk Co. That's a catchy, cool name.
Yes.
Our branding, obviously I'm biased, but our branding is beautiful. It feels cool. It feels fresh. It feels very different than most things in the category. And so we could have easily ridden on that and just done the same thing everyone else does and probably would have a more successful business for the short term, but I don't think for the long term. And I have moments where I'm like, damn, why didn't we do that? But I probably would have given up a long time ago if those were the decisions that we made. Yeah. And instead we decided to do things differently. And that took real innovation and real work and a different way of building our business. Up until today, we were manufacturing ourselves, which you can imagine is crazy in the beverage world and adds such a complex layer to running a business. But it was necessary because
you mean literally today?
Today, literally today. Yes.
Literally today. What are the odds of that?
I know.
That's fascinating.
I know.
Okay.
This might turn into a therapy session, you helping me close out this massive chapter of my business. I hope you're qualified.
Okay. That's what we're here. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've got a degree that came on the back of a ketchup packet from a dumpster of Wendy's.
Good enough. I live in LA. That's good enough for me.
Yeah. the state of Nevada has said I can't go there ever again anymore. But other than that, we're good.
Perfect. Well, so we actually have gone the route of choosing innovation, which is super exciting, but really hard and takes more time, takes more money, takes more effort. And that first path was, I told you we started at the farmer's market. So we were serving fresh almond milk that has a 5-day shelf life at the farmer's market. Not scalable at all. Delicious, amazing, but not scalable. So we then had to create a format that was scalable, and we created these frozen concentrates, first of their kind on the market. You could literally just thaw it, add water to it, and you have the same product that you were buying from us at the farmer's market, this fresh homemade milk, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool, but also frozen is so hard to scale and so hard to manage, and scalable, but not in the ways that we really wanted to like change the category and be a solution for really be a global solution. So behind the scenes for the last 5 years, we've been working on creating these powders. The idea that they are still the same quality. So we had to find a really special way to dry them that wouldn't impact the quality. They would dissolve instantly, so they're super water soluble, which is really hard to do because our milks are similar nutrient profile to dairy. So they have fat and protein in it, like good amounts of fat and protein. So really hard to dry and make it water soluble. They had to like foam and froth for coffee. They had to taste good. They had to have all the things, and that took us 5 years to figure out. And so you can imagine how intense that journey was. And you can also imagine, like, if we were just doing this for money or just to be another brand out there, we probably would have given up on that in like after year 1 or 2.
That makes sense. You're not the first person who's noted that. Obviously, we spend enormous amounts of money shipping water around in various forms. Anytime we're shipping anything with water in it, we're spending so much of our resources on that. So I guess in general, I'm very interested in powder or things that you can make. I've often thought about this for eco-friendly products, whether it be shampoo or soap. So there are many different types of products we get in our life, often with single-use plastic, often with a lot of liquid that has weight and space and all of that. So I've definitely gone down the path in the past of thinking, how could we replace all of these things with powders, or so that we just add the water at home?
Yes.
Which might even give you better water depending on the circumstance, especially if you've got a great filtration system or something like that.
Yep.
So it is exciting. Well, what I think is fascinating, we talked about this before we started taping, is the idea of pivoting, or how emissions change and how we may get further away from our original goals or closer, or end up redefining what our original goals were. How do you pivot over the course of 11 years and still not lose sight of the thing that you originally believed in?
That is a great question. And man, it is hard. Pivots, we've gone through some serious pivots. I mean, any founder who went through COVID, and that alone is enough. And we've had some additional serious pivots in there, and it's exhausting, and it just takes so much effort. But I think that's where that strong mission comes into play. And of course, other factors come into play along the line. Down the road, we fundraised and became VC backed, and there's a lot of noise and expectations around that. But you have to be really stubborn, I think, is the only answer. And my stubbornness has served us it's hurt the company in ways and served the company in ways. And at the moment, I can say it has served us well in that we have these products, these powdered products on the market. They've been on the market for a little over a year, validated by some big partners, and patent pending, and we are the only ones doing this. And it is a solution in so many ways, and sets us up for real future success. But it was really hard those years where we weren't hitting our goal numbers, where we were trying to figure out the R&D. Like, the R&D process was so intense, and like it just all takes so much longer than you think, So it was just me standing my ground and being stubborn. And there's been plenty of times where that has not been a good thing. But I think overall for our mission, it has been.
That's good. So do you ever think that you could get into those machines, those pre-made cappuccino, slightly prosumer machines where they mix some kind of powdered milk and powdered coffee and it all comes together? Is that a conceivable direction for this at some point? Just replacing something like that one-on-one?
Absolutely. Do you know anyone? Because we would love to be in those machines. That's a that is a goal for sure.
That would be great. I know an end consumer. I know somebody who'd like to see that. And somebody who was just at a Toyota dealership and was like, oh God,
yes.
one of these again.
Yes, yes.
I personally would enjoy that as being an option. I'll tell you that very much. To have like a pre-made cappuccino in a better way or something like that would be awesome.
Yes.
So all I can help is just by being one more consumer at this point. But if somebody comes up, I'll definitely connect. You never know where the next 200 episodes may lead us. But that's super cool. And you talked a bit about, before we start talking about VC and the expectations of investors. And that's a topic that's come up on this show before. Should somebody take on outside funding to do some, should they bootstrap? I think because you came from a farmer's market, you know exactly what it means to bootstrap. You say, if I come in with this much product, I can make $1,000 in a day. I can sustain myself in this way. How do you feel about VC funding now? Pro, con, pro for the right kind of business, con for another kind?
That's a tough question. I've had positive experiences in there, and I've had some really hard negative experiences. And I would say my journey, I raised my first round during a time where fundraising was very buzzy. I also was a founder on the west side of LA, and that was very buzzy at the time too. Plant-based milk was very buzzy. And so I definitely got caught up in the hype, if you will, of like, this is just what you do if you're going to be a big, successful business, is that you fundraise. And so I didn't fully know what that meant, like what the fundraising journey triggered and meant. And so I've had a little resentment along the journey, but so many learnings. I mean, it's grown me 100 times more than I would have grown in this lifetime, for sure. And I think when you're starting a business, let's say you've already gotten past the point where you're like, this is my passion. I absolutely have to do this. There's nothing else I can do. If you're there and starting a business, I think the question that I would ask, and this is advice I gave to a founder earlier this week, is like, what kind of lifestyle do you want to live? What do you want for your life? Because for better or worse, your business and your life are one and the same, at least for the first few years. And, what do you really value? And I think we tend to like separate them in our heads, but that never shows up in real life. Like you are just,
we do,
but it's not the reality. That's not how it is in life. You are one and the same.
No, it's not.
Yeah, for me, taking VC money, doing the fundraise route actually was not aligned with the life that I wanted to live. But once I got on the train, it's really hard to admit that. It took me years to admit that and realize that. It took me like a really intense situation this past year to like face it and admit that. Because once you're on the train, it's pretty hard to get off.
And you completely cede control. I have friends who are founders, and I've seen it go both ways. I've seen some people who are in the middle of it. I've seen some people who are at the beginning of it. I've seen some people who shut down their business. And that's one thing I just talked about. After 200 interviews, there's a time component. I've talked to many people over the last 3 years. Some of them have had to shut down their businesses or pivot, or they're no longer the CEO of the company. Time is happening to everybody. And that's something that when I started doing this journey, I didn't expect that component of it. I didn't expect, you just think like, oh, this person's doing that. They'll always be doing that. But now I'm on LinkedIn and somebody's like, I'd make the hard decision to let go of all my staff or downsize or whatever. And you think, okay. And I leave those episodes up, but I think it is important to talk about this part of that journey and what it means to lose control when your stubbornness, like you said, is maybe the reason that got you into this in the first place. And to give that up might mean compromising on something that you really don't want to compromise on.
Yes. And for my journey, I haven't lost control. I am still in control, but I have to take their opinions and like I have to listen to what they have to say. There's things that we have a board, so we have a 3-member board. So there's things that have to be voted on the board, and 2 out of the 3 members have to agree, and that's a process. And even some of the simplest things can be really painful. And I've had to threaten like, hey, if this vote doesn't go this way, I will leave the company. I've had to threaten that in order to get the right thing done. So it just makes, even if you don't lose control per se, it can make things really intense, and it can be just this additional roller coaster that you on, because most of these VCs have never been in your position. And even if they have been founders before and great leaders, they're not the founder or leader of your business. They're not in your business day to day, but yet their opinion needs to be weighed as much as if they are. And that's a really hard thing to deal with as a founder and CEO.
Yes, I can only imagine that that's tough. I'm in the very opposite type of business myself. I just have a digital agency. It's very linear, very straightforward, very bootstrappy. Money in, staff up, staff up, more money in. Yeah. There's nothing very particularly complicated about the business that I'm in from that regard. Yeah. But I can imagine that must be very difficult.
Yeah. And like I said, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about the world, a lot about yourself. And so that part is a blessing.
So when it comes to the future and the title of this show, are you more optimistic now or pessimistic? And maybe today, this is a good moment because we're going through a change. Are you optimistic about the type of change that you were trying to make 10 years ago? Or are you more pessimistic? Like, do you feel more confident that it's going to happen or less confident now that you know more?
Yeah, depends on the day, right? I feel optimistic for humanity in general. I think people are waking up to...
All right.
Yes, we can do this, people. I think people are waking up to things that aren't working, and more people are starting to ask that question you talked about in the beginning of the episode of like, how do I fix this? Noticing things are broken. How do I fix this? I don't know if you're into astrology, Ross. You don't necessarily strike me as someone who is, but...
Continue your train of thought.
Okay.
Go on.
Okay,
let's pretend that I am. Let's pretend. Yeah. So go ahead.
Ross, let me tell you, we have, as of like February, we've entered what astrologers call the age of Aquarius. And what that means in astrology and like based on the planetary alignment is that, yes, it is. It is. I played that song many times on the day that this transition happened. Amazing music video also. Might have to link it in the show notes because it's very entertaining. What that means is people are waking up to their own power. People are becoming their own gurus instead of looking outside. People are seeing systems for what they are and have a willingness to step up, break the systems. If they're not the system breaker, they're willing to like link arms with the system breaker and be a part of that. And again, whether you believe in astrology or not, I think you can kind of feel the buzz of that starting to happen and see it more and more and see everyone's independent voices becoming louder. And plant-based milk is just like a tiny piece of that. And our mission has always been bigger than plant-based milk. It is really to empower people on their wellness journey. But as I've grown and evolved, it's really to just empower people on their journey of being human and like doing this the best, most aligned, most powerful way they possibly can. And I really think we are entering into a time where that is possible for everyone.
That's so great. And I love the sentiment behind that. What do you think about the choice to do something hard or thankless? Because, again, like we talked about at the beginning of this, I think both of our podcasts would be more successful if we just called them Get Rich Today, Idiot, and just made it about the fastest way of making the most money with nothing, just cryptocurrencies. Here you go. You don't have to do anything. Just click this button and you're a millionaire. Obviously, that's very appealing to people who just don't want to do anything. How do you sell people on the idea of doing something difficult and thankless and possibly with no reward for decades when it comes to something that might be important? When you're saying like, well, we had a lot of pivots and it's been real tricky and it's been real tough and there's been a lot of soul searching moments, and somebody's like, I don't want any part of that. How do we convince more people to do this?
Yeah. I mean, gosh, should we convince them? I'm not sure. I think.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Look,
should we? Is it a mistake or is it the right way to do it? Yeah.
I think if you're feeling called to make an impact, do that in whatever way that is. Take the steps, because no matter what, no matter how many people you touch, whatever the success or failure of that impact or those decisions are, like, you're the hero on this journey, and it's going to change you. It's going to have an impact on you. It's going to be a part of your journey. And like I said, on my hardest days, I have been like, well, if nothing else, if this all fails and falls to nothing, like, if nothing else, I have grown and learned so much from this. And I am prepared. I am at a place in life where I'm confident I could go out and do and create anything because of the experiences I've had. And that's a pretty empowering and powerful place to be. Even if my company went to shambles, I'm still feeling empowered based on what I've been through, what I've learned. So maybe it all, entrepreneurship is actually a little bit selfish. We all go out there with these stories of like how we want to help others and touch others. And that is true. But I really think like the core of the purpose, the journey, is really for ourselves.
And you're referring to not just money for ourselves, although that would be nice, but something deeper. Maybe you're more in touch with philosophy for yourself, or what you might call spirituality or something like that. You might have a better sense of what motivates you. Yeah.
And maybe we don't know that when we start, right? But I think there's an evolution that just happens that opens us up to things that we just wouldn't experience if we hadn't made the choice to start a business. At least that's been my experience.
Well, that resonates with me very deeply. I mean, even in my very different type of business, there's always some kind of stress. That's the thing. There's always some sort of outside force. When things are going well, could they be going better? When things are going bad, where do you stop the damage? When do you need to hire more people? When do you need to let go of people? How do you keep the people that are with you motivated and happy? How do you pretend that there's certainty when you're dealing with a mess of uncertainty? It feels like every morning I wake up and I look at my phone and something's going to punch me in the face. I just don't know what it is. And oftentimes it's something completely other than what you're expecting. Like you spend all night worried about one problem, and then the next morning you get a text like, oh, right, of course, I hadn't thought about that. That's also important. And like how do you, but you see it as a positive thing. You still have the energy to keep fighting and keep going. It's not, in your opinion, because you could imagine that this type of environment leads towards burnout and somebody says, screw this, I never want to do this again. But you still feel energized after 10 years and ready to keep on fighting.
Ross, that's the question that I've been asking myself the last year and a half. I shared with you like a year and a half ago, I had this traumatic catalyst that like set, had me hit rock bottom. And it really made me take this perspective and look around and say like, man, how do I want my life to be? And is all of this worth it? Because you do feel like you're just pushing a lot of times. Well, there's so much reward, but you're just like pushing this giant crater up a hill, and like the crater just becomes heavier and the hill becomes steeper. It's like, and you're like, where are the resting spots?
And then somebody gets mad at you for not pushing fast enough. Yeah.
Yeah. And what that led me to on my personal journey was like, okay, I am burnt out. I'm burnt out. I was in, I haven't said this out loud to many people, but I was in a place where I actually hated my business for a little bit, and I wanted out. And I was like, I could walk away from this because I feel like if I don't, it's going to, and this is going to sound dramatic, but I feel like it's going to kill me. Like I felt my energy completely sucked. I have Lyme disease also, so it was triggering some real health issues through the stress. And it wasn't until I had to get really clear on a different way to do business than what I was doing. and kind of separate myself from the business because, for so many years, and it really served the business for us to be one and the same. And I put everything into my business. And you kind of do some of that because once you raise VC money too, you're expected to. You're expected to live and breathe the business. You're expected to answer calls on the weekend. You're expected to respond to emails at 6 a.m. Like, you're expected to put every ounce of what you have into your business. And I was a good little student and willing to like rise to that occasion and do that until I couldn't anymore. And so for me, I knew I still loved my business deep down, and I knew the mission was still really important. And so I had to find a completely different way to do business. And that's what I've evolved into. And the balance and, kind of thinking about and running the business in this different way is what has given me my energy back and has allowed me to see things that I didn't see in the business before and make decisions to simplify and make things more efficient, and decisions that before were so tied to my ego or to my morals or to a representation of me that I couldn't say no. I couldn't cut those channels. I couldn't let them go. And this evolution was just like, no, it's not about you. And it's not a representation of you because you have this whole full life to live. And now we're taking each of them separately, and we're going to do exactly what's right to make the business thrive. And it is, Ross, it's been so freeing. And let me tell you, literally, the minute I made that decision and started to say it out loud to our CFO and our VP of operations and some of our internal team, shit literally fell into my lap for the business. Like things that we had been trying to figure out for a year, 2 years, things that we had brought professionals in to help us figure out that they couldn't figure out, literally just overnight fell into our laps.
Now that's given me goosebumps right here. That's given me chills. What a powerful story. And for the people who are in that moment, because I think we've all felt that at some point, whether it's changing careers, even non-entrepreneurs have felt that experience of something's got to give, I've got to change, or a break has been made, something must change. And it can be physical health, it can be burnout, it can be all kinds of signs that tell you, yo, you gotta stop. How long did that take in terms of months from that realization to finding that peace or that calm, just so that people kind of, I just like to be very specific about that. Just, was it like, I took 1 month, 3 months, 6 months? How long did you have to sit in that badness?
Yes.
Before you came out?
I want to be encouraging.
Something else.
But it took me, it took me even at least a year to even, it took me a year to even recognize like, oh, I need to admit to myself that that this isn't working. So it took me a year to admit that. And then once I could finally admit and do the work, things did happen quickly, but I think it was like probably like 7 or 8 months. And I got a coach and I, started working on stuff myself and like really, really was intentional about figuring out how to make changes in my life. And in this grand scheme of things, a year, 2 years, 8 months, that's all actually really quickly and so worth it.
Yeah. Well, I'm very glad you did. And I think that's very inspiring. It's good to talk about the real stuff too, because otherwise it feels like, and I think we in this relationship, and you're also now doing a podcast, which we'll plug here in a second, but the podcast interviewee, it's an interesting relationship because on the one hand, some people have been on hundreds of podcasts, right? And they've answered as a guest, they're like, I've answered these questions 500 times. Mm-hmm. And as a podcaster, you can also tell when your interviewee is going into some kind of rehearsed sales pitch. You can just sort of say like, oh, you're treating me like I'm on Shark Tank and I'm going to invest in your company. You're just saying the same thing you've said 4,000 other times. And some people will just quickly jump into this rehearsed or memorized speech, basically. And I always get very frustrated and I try to break that pattern because it's no fun for either of us in that moment. So I really appreciate, getting a bit raw and real and
Yes.
talking about these things, because again, it's like if you talk to 200 entrepreneurs, they're all super optimistic about the future. They all just can't wait for tomorrow. They can't wait to bring the future quick enough and all this stuff. It's like, come on, do you really believe that stuff? Like, do you honestly believe that? Am I crazy or are you crazy? And
Right. Well, you might have a better scope of understanding if this is true, but based on my experience with founders, we are all crazy for sure. That's a
crazy,
yes. Yeah. That's a hard yes.
Different types of crazy.
Yes. And we are all, I think, eternal optimists. And I think that combination just might be things that we have to have. Like you could be on the ground, like kicking me. And I have been in that position, and I still have this optimism, and it might take a little bit more to like dig and find that, but like I can't shake it, So
there's some part
crazily optimistic.
Yeah.
maybe that's
that's
the
a better title. Yeah, I think that'll resonate more. But I think that's what I've seen too. Is like you get beaten down, and then these people, they you find yourself back doing it again. I've seen that story. Somebody's like, I need to step down. I'm tired of being. I had a successful guy I talked to step down at a high of his as a CEO, and they raised hundreds of millions in funding and all of that. And he stepped down. He's like, I need a break. I need to focus on my family. I'm not going to do that again. And then 2 months later, he's doing it again. It's almost like you can't stop. So it's like, oh no, that part of my life is over. And then somebody's like, do you want to start this other thing? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I just needed to watch TV for a week, and then I wanted to go back. But regardless, thank you for opening up and sharing some truths. It's very interesting, and I'm glad you're embarking on this new part of your journey. And what tell us a bit about your podcasts. Where are you podcasting? What are you talking about? What's the purpose, and where can people follow your new show?
Yeah, thank you for asking, and thanks for your great questions today. I think I wasn't expecting to go there, but your questions brought it out. So, learning some things from a pro. So thanks for that. My podcast, like I said, we're 7 episodes in, so
hardly.
We are brand spanking new. It's called
exciting.
It's called Expanders Club podcast, and our tagline is empowering your evolution. And really here to inspire, educate, share, build a community to help you in whatever stage of your journey you're in. I obviously have an extensive background in the wellness world, building a business. My co-host is a wellness, health, lifestyle coach. And so sharing stuff along our journey, we're both very much on this like transformative journey also to really understanding our purpose, what our dream lives look like. And so sharing some of that, but we have some really cool guests on too that, from founders to psychics to, people secretly dealing, medicinal mushrooms behind the scenes. So it's a lot of fun. It's really a space for me.
Nice.
It's a space for me personally to just be creative, have interesting conversations, and again, going back to the selfish founder thing, like really accelerate my journey and hope we can do the same for the people tuning in and listening.
I love that motivation. I'm sure you'll find that. I have absolutely no doubt. It's its own special kind of grind, as you'll figure out, but I think it will be rewarding for you. It's a special animal, the podcasting world. But moments like these are what make it all worth it. No doubt about it.
Yeah, the interviews have been such a fun part, and just taking also the tips and tricks and information that we're getting from the interviews and incorporating those into our own lives has already been again, we're 7 episodes in, and it's already having a positive impact on me.
Super cool. Well, that's awesome. Is there anything else that you would like to promote? I mean, obviously we've mentioned your company, or anywhere else you want to send people who've made it to the end of the episode.
Yeah, well, thanks everyone for hanging with us. Goodmylk Co is the name of my main business that I'm the founder and CEO of. Mm-hmm. We're on Instagram at Goodmylk Co, Goodmylk Co.
That's the key. The Y is the key.
The Y.
Can't forget that part.
Yes, it is. the podcast is and that platform and the social media there is just a really fun place. And I think you can learn a lot of things, like I said, from psychics to wellness and health tips to recipes. Like, we're just having fun there. So those are the two main places I'm putting my energy and spending my time these days.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brooke. It's been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you stopping by. And I'm very excited for what 2.0 or 3.0 or 4.0, whatever the point it is.
Who's keeping track?
I hope you find that new balance. I hope you find that new way of doing things that you can keep going for another 10 years, and I know you will. So yeah.
Thank you.
That's all I got. With that, the official podcast is over.